Deadly clashes have once again erupted in the South Caucasus. Azerbaijan made military incursions into the Armenian territory, occupying 140 kilometers of its land in violation of a truce declared in 2020. Although Nagorno-Karabakh had been at the heart of tensions until 2020, when Azerbaijan liberated its occupied territories, there are signs that since then, Baku has been eyeing to claim parts of the Armenian territory in the south to create the so-called Pan-Turanic corridor. Hi, and welcome to our program. In this episode, we'll explain the Nagorno-Karabakh dispute in a nutshell. Nagorno-Karabakh is a mountainous region in the South Caucasus. The region lies entirely within Azerbaijan's borders and is internationally recognized as part of the country, which begs the question, where is the dispute?
Well, historically speaking, the region has been populated by both ethnic Armenians and Azeri populations, and ethnic and territorial disputes between the two run deep. In order to understand the current conflicts, though, we need to go back to 1920. That was when Armenia and Azerbaijan became part of the Soviet Union, and Soviet rulers established Nagorno-Karabakh as an autonomous region within the Republic of Azerbaijan. The move angered ethnic Armenians, and in the late 1980s, as the Soviet control waned, they seized the opportunity and demanded the transfer of the region from Soviet Azerbaijan to Armenia. This caused serious friction between Armenian and Azeri populations. With the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991, tensions escalated into an outright war. It's estimated that tens of thousands lost their lives and many more were displaced.
The fighting was gruesome. Several war crimes were committed and cities were razed to the ground. Armenian forces eventually claimed victory and expelled ethnic Azeri populations from Nagorno-Karabakh and areas around it before a ceasefire brokered by Russia and facilitated by Iran finally silenced the guns in 1994.
Following the deal, Nagorno-Karabakh technically remained part of Azerbaijan, but was practically governed by ethnic Armenians, who had their own name for the region, Artsakh. Peace talks started between the two countries with Russia, France, and the United States acting as the primary mediators. Numerous proposals were negotiated, but to no avail. The biggest disagreement was over the status of Nagorno-Karabakh. Yerevan rejected Nagorno-Karabakh's subordination to Baku and wanted guarantees of independence before giving any significant concessions. Meanwhile, Azerbaijan refused to concede its territory and wanted a phased settlement, starting with the return of its occupied districts adjacent to Nagorno-Karabakh. So tensions and skirmishes continued.
In 2016, tensions escalated into a four-day war that resulted in minor territorial gains by Azerbaijan. The warring parties blamed each other for the outbreak of clashes that caused significant civilian casualties on both sides. And it's not really easy to say who was right.
Some international observers criticized Azerbaijan for escalating low-level tensions into a full-scale war, saying it was an attack years in the making. Between 2010 and 2015, Azerbaijan's military expenditure rose from 2.8 to 5.5% of its GDP, which ranged from $53 to $75 billion. Armenia's average military expenditure over the same period was around 4% of its much smaller GDP that ranged from $9 to $11 billion. Others, however, blamed Armenia for provoking the war by renaming abandoned Azeri districts and repopulating them with ethnic Armenians from beyond the Caucasus. Even historical sites located in those Azeri districts were embedded on Armenian banknotes, suggesting that Armenia was trying to annex the entirety of Karabakh, including the adjacent Azerbaijani districts.
In any case, following the four-day war, peace talks remained paralyzed and political rhetoric became increasingly belligerent on both sides. Azerbaijan warned of taking back its districts by force, while Armenia threatened to take even more territory in the next war. As it stood, another armed conflict seemed inevitable.
In 2020, the two countries fought a 6-week war that ended with Azerbaijan's victory. Russian President Vladimir Putin negotiated a ceasefire, and Armenia agreed to cede the territories surrounding Nagorno-Karabakh to Azerbaijan. But we also need to discuss the role regional countries play in the conflict. Turkey borders Armenia, but has no official diplomatic relations with its neighbor. In fact, The two are historic foes, with a century-long hostility over the 1915 Armenian genocide, disagreement on 1921 Kars Treaty, and disputes over Western Armenia. But Turkey has strong ties with Azerbaijan and has been its staunch supporter. In fact, Turkey and Israel, backed by the UK, are seeking to create a corridor that would connect NATO territory in Turkey to the Caspian Sea, Central Asia, and the west of China at the expense of Iran-Armenia border. But the establishment of such a corridor will have more far-reaching implications.
The corridor is meant to harm the interests of three powerful Shanghai Organization countries, namely Iran, Russia, and China, in areas such as energy and transit. It is also meant to provoke pan-Turkish sentiments in the region and expand NATO to the Caspian Sea. The recent Azerbaijani military incursions into the Armenian territory with the aim of creating NATO's Pan-Turani corridor then should be seen as a clear breach of internationally recognized borders and a threat to regional peace. Well, that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.